Hello everyone, I'm Brian Richardson. I'm the editor of LP Gas Magazine. In this video, I'd like to introduce you to Mark Rachal of Cost Management Solutions. I spoke with Mark recently about the propane price and supply environment and possible concerns about propane availability for later this year. Can you say, for the propane industry, should there be concern whether we'll have enough supply for the upcoming winter, the winter of 2021, or is it too early to even go that far?
No, I don't think it's too early. I think it's a very appropriate question, because you look at it, and we've already seen just recently how much we can disconnect between the hubs of Bellevue and Conway and Main Street out farther down the pipelines. How we can see tight supply. I mean, we've seen this just recently in a relatively mild winter. So here's what we can almost be sure of. One, it's going to be a lot harder to get propane out of Canada. Canada's got very low inventory right now. They've got more export options, and their natural gas production is going to decrease. So that means that their propane supply is going to decrease. They've got to rebuild their inventories. They'd much rather export it to Asia if they can, or Mexico. So we're seeing quite a decrease in imports coming into the U.S. already this year. So I think anybody that's kind of been dependent on rail cars out of Canada needs to be aware, needs to be a little bit cautious that may not be there. Number two, I'm not sure where our economy is going to be by the start of winter, but I've got a feeling that our refineries will not be back up to full capacity by then, full throughput. About 15% of our propane supply comes from the actual process of refining crude oil. So there's a very good possibility that that's going to be down this year if refineries are not back up to speed. So someone that normally gets their supply from refineries, they might find less supply available to them there. And what that's going to do, if you can't get the rail cars from Canada, if you can't get the supply and you're getting less supply from the refineries, it's going to push more people to the pipelines. We already know the pipelines have struggled even in mild winters recently. So, and look, you've got with the Mariner East pipeline system now getting all the stuff to Marcus Hook, you've got very strong exports going out of the East Coast. I really believe that a propane retailer right now needs to be prepared for the possibility of tightness of supply. And we may not see it at the hub. We may not see it. We may see a reduction in inventory at Mont Bellevue or Conway's already pretty low, but it's primarily because we just don't need it. But I'm thinking that between the lack of rail cars, possibly the lack of product out of refineries, you're going to stress some pipelines, and I would be concerned about that. So I would try to stay well ahead of the game this year, all the way through, from beginning to end. This summer, fill everybody up that you can, get as prepared as you can, try to get your inventory full, your customers' inventory full. Make sure you're building allocation on pipelines if that's possible in your area, that kind of thing. And just try to, it's almost like dealing with COVID-19, try not to put yourself in the situation where you get the spike. Try to flatten the curve a little bit on your demand if you can. Anything you can do to flatten the curve on your demand. Again, I would just encourage anybody out there that's for this winter. This is a really, really unknown situation. I am concerned that we're probably going to be in an upward price cycle. Everybody's going to have to be very vigilant and watching all of the fundamental pieces, the supply demand pieces. How is production running? Or is the trend of it declining going to continue? I believe it will. Exports, are we going to have less exports? I think we will. Imports, I'm sorry, less imports. Will exports remain strong? I think they will, because China has provided waivers for some of their companies. They used to have a 28% tariff. They still have a 28% tariff on U.S. propane, but they have been giving waivers to some of their companies to buy to avoid that tariff. So now, talking to traders, there's a lot of propane going to China. It's going to PDH plants, which are propane dehydrogenation plants that takes the propane, turns it into propylene, which is used in the petrochemical industry. Those are kind of, when they start ramping those things up, they kind of stick with it. It's not like they can just turn it off real easy. So they kind of stick with it. And so I think there's a good chance we'll continue to see some fairly strong exports this year. So overall, I think we're going to see a situation where we're going to have an uptrend in pricing. And I also, again, with the refineries possibly having less throughput, with the lack of propane coming out of Canada, I'm a little concerned for high demand areas and pipelines' ability to keep up with those high demand areas for this winter. So again, I would stay well ahead of the game this year, both in protecting myself from higher prices and making sure I've got plenty of supply.